Hey guys, and welcome to the Hobby News. So this week we've got a few different things going on. We've got some pre-orders coming up, and we've got a little sneak peek at some Ork things. Should be pretty interesting. So, and there's some Sisters stuff here as well, but for the purposes of this little news segment, we're going to be looking at the pre-orders and specifically the Orks. So let's get into it. We'll start off with the pre-orders. So these should be coming out this coming Saturday, it sounds like. So we'll come down here. Yeah, so we also have a massive crop of pre-orders on the way next Saturday, including a High Lord of Terror, Redemptionists in the Underhive, and Idolith Deepkin Warband making their way to Diachasm. So yeah, some pretty cool stuff. We've seen some of these things, I guess, before, but we'll just go through them just in case you haven't or you didn't know that they were coming, and we'll take a look. There's also this skulls thing. I'm not really quite sure what that is, but it looks like it's all to do with their games and stuff, so some sort of showcase or something. For most people in Australia, this is pretty meaningless because it's all at 3 a.m, but for all of those people that are in that time zone that can actually watch this thing, I guess that'll be cool. You know, they are getting better over the years at making their computer games, so that's kind of cool. I guess, yeah, if you like that stuff, then all good. But otherwise, let's move straight on to the toys. So we'll come down here, and we've got, looks like the Sisters Codex is coming. So I guess this means that this is up for pre-order this Saturday. Let's just take a look. So, raise your voice in praise of the Emperor, for his Sisters of Battle are coming next Saturday to cleanse the galaxy of heresy. Okay, sick. So, yeah, you're going to get your Codex, which is really good. I mean, you know, Sisters have been pretty good, even last edition and now this edition, so I can imagine that this book is going to be pretty damn good. You know, they play, you know, pretty ruthlessly, and so it should be fun to see how they go. I've always liked them, even way back in the day, in the old days of Old Hammer. You know, they were still cool back then as well, and so much like interesting stuff you can do with them. They're got a really flexible list. There's tons of different builds you can do, and in terms of hobby, there's so much there, right? It's great. So I'm sure there's a lot of Sister Battle players out there that are just eagerly anticipating this. That's really cool. So yeah, we've seen this this anime lady here that's going to be coming out. So for those that love the baby cradle robots, that's you're going to be getting some of those, looks like. So the Lord and her posse of mini baby cradle robots. So that's pretty good. So you'll be able to have fun mucking around with those. I can certainly see some of those, you know, those grimdark, you know, Kit Basher guys will love to like muck around with these, because that's a great sort of, you know, odd shaped body to like change up and fit different things to and make weird, I guess, automatons or all kinds of like odd dark fantasy creatures from this type of base. I can see a lot of people that love converting doing stuff with these, you know, and really making them quite strange and odd. There's a lot of potential here for converters and people that want to do a little bit of their own scratch building stuff. I can see a lot of potential. You know, you take the heads out, rebuild, you know, do all kinds of other elaborate pieces up the top here. Yeah, the sky's the limit. There's so much you could do with that. Or even combine multiples together to make some sort of centipede-like crazy robotic, you know, contraption. There's so many possibilities. But anyway, so they're cool. They're coming out, and we've seen all that. And then we've got this squad with the shields. So these are, I think, these are the bodyguard type of ones, aren't they? I'm not sure, or the veterans, but anyway, we saw those previously, and they're looking really cool. You know, great looking unit. Yeah, I like these tombstone kind of shields. They're pretty cool. Yeah, overall, awesome. You know what I mean? If you don't like the shields, you could always take them off and put different ones on. I'm sure many people will do that. It's not that hard to change that out. And they have their little bolters behind, but you could easily put those into a different shield. No worries. So yeah, all good there. And then coming down, yeah, we've seen all this before. So we've got this chick here. Now this one's that weird sort of triangle shaped lady. I don't know how I feel about this one. It's a little bit odd for me, but you know, there is some possibility there. I think maybe it's really hard to tell unless you see the model, like what's going on here. But this section is what's really kind of annoying. I don't know. Maybe you could cut the arm here, have her kind of holding the staff upright, and then maybe change this arm to something else so she's holding something this way, and have her kind of in a more sort of stoic stance that breaks the triangle a bit, like not in like this straight, but maybe have that there and something else here. That might improve the look, because this feels like, it just feels like her arms are kind of in her neck a little bit. Doesn't that look like that? It's like very, very close. I don't know. There's something a little strange with this upper body that doesn't quite fit. The lower half is fine, and this top piece is good. It's just this section here is really, really odd. Either that, or you get your green stuff out and hack away a bunch of this and get an arm coming out here, and have the arm really coming out, and change this up so it connects and lifts up, and then you'd be able to resculpt the robes around it and move this arm out as well, and give that holding maybe like a brazier, or some sort of like incense burner or something. I don't know, something Sister of Battle like, right? Whatever you want to put in there, and not use these hands, because that hand is definitely something odd's happening with that. He's got a very strange. She's been going into the deeper chambers and looking at the sacred artifacts, and maybe staring at them a little bit too long. Something weird's happening there. But anyway. I think this needs a bit of conversion work to make this thing work. I just think that's a bit strange. But anyway, apart from that, everything else is looking pretty cool. And then you got your obligatory cards and dice. Not too bad for their crazy dice. At least you can kind of tell, although I'm not a fan of this type of thing. Having it on the 1 or the 6 or whatever is fine. But I think all of the numbers outside of a 1 or a 6, and I wouldn't even have both 1 and 6 something different. I would only choose one, either 6 or 1, and have that as the image, and everything else should be numbers, because it's just too, in my money, I would have it on the 6 or something like that. Or if it's something a dark, like a sort of a ghoulish faction or something, then maybe have a skull on or their icon on the 1 or something. But yeah, I'm not a fan of this type of thing, but for those that are, great, collector's item, that sort of thing, that's cool. Now this is interesting. So back in the day, I used to play, this particular faction, these, I guess, fire starters, for anyone that's old enough to know what that reference is. But anyway, that's pretty cool. So you've got these guys coming back, which is really nice. So yeah, the Redemptionists are just that crazy zealot-like faction that run around with flames and just burn everything. And I always loved them. I thought they were really cool. And these are really holding true to that classic look for them, which I'm really pleased about. They've just gone all in on that zany, crazy looking thing. I love everything about them. They're just fun. Like, look at this guy. He's got his flames coming out his head. He got it here as well. It's just super fun. These are just the funnest warband ever in Necromunda, and I'm sure they still are. I'm sure they have tons of zany, silly rules that make them interesting to play. But what's really cool about these models is that you get a really good base to work for cultists for 40k. Like, with very minimal changes and work, these would be great word bearer cultists. You know what I mean? Like, this is perfect for word bearers. You get that sort of like monkish robes and all that kind of stuff, very zealot looking figures. You could put tons of little chaos runes and icons on them. Even this is already pretty chaotic. It wouldn't take much to turn this guy into a zealot for chaos. There's so much good potential there for that sort of thing. And at least you're getting, what's that, 2, 4, 6. You're getting, I'm assuming this is what the box is. So at least there's 6 in the box. It's not great for a horde list, but in most chaos armies, you're only taking like, a unit of 10 or something, or maybe a unit of 20. But, I think it'd be worth it, even if you have, you mix in, like, have these as the majority and maybe a few others, stragglers or different, like, more mutated ones in the mix, you know what I mean? And just have a few different models in there, and have these as the main group, or the ones leading it. You could have them as the leader models or whatever. That'd be super cool. So yeah, I really rate these. I think that's great. I might even pick up some up just to reminisce on old times. It's pretty good. So let's come down. And then we've got, let's see. Oh yeah, okay. So then their dice and so on. Yeah, all good, I guess. Oh, there's a corridor. Sorry. So that's cool. Looks like they're getting some love there. And then we come down to the crab. Here we go. Now I've talked about this before in one of my little hobby vlogs and stuff, or in one of my chats, in the hobby chats. When I came back into the hobby a few years ago, and I'm not an elf player. I don't really get into the elven side of things, as anyone that knows me from back in the day knows. It's yeah, I'm not a big fan of the elves. But when I came back in, the Isleith guys are the first, I guess, elven-looking things that I kind of did a double take on. I kind of like it. You know what I mean? For some people, this is all really zany and crazy and silly kind of design that they have. But for me, I think it's because I really love like teal colors, blue greens, aqua colors, all that stuff. If you have a look at any of my hobby vlogs or anything, you'll see my armies. Even my Death Guard are in a blue green. I really enjoy it. My own brand, Blighter Gods. If you have a look in that, all the demons, it's all aquatic, and something about using these and purples and so on, something about that kind of color combination is really pleasing to me, and I really like their aesthetic. They're more like a sculptural motif than functional armor or whatever, and I think people get hung up on the functionality of these things and not really understanding when you're coming at it from a sculptor's point of view. I am a sculptor, and this is more a sculptural statement rather than yes, a fantasy character in a fantasy world doing fantasy stuff with a medieval background and functional things and whatever else. And those arguments are all valid, and I'm not trying to deride anyone that wants to critique them that way. But as a sculptural thing, this is just a fun thing to sculpt, and you can see that they have a lot of fun with it. And the sculptors are they're doing Pokemon here. You got to catch them all. That's just for a sculptor, that's a lot of fun. These types of things, just going to town on strange shapes in the armor. I mean, if you look at any of my Blighter God stuff, I've got all kinds of these sort of strange organic shapes. It's much more pleasing to sculpt, I can tell you that. If you're sculpting digitally, doing hard surface sculpting is a pain in the backside, and being able to just freeform sculpt organic shapes in it like this is so much more pleasing and enjoyable process. And so the sculptors, when they're given a job like this to do, they're probably having a lot of fun and enjoying their day. When they're given I don't know, let's say some hard plate that a Cities of Sigmar person maybe, or a I don't know, maybe a Stormcast Eternal. For some of the guys that love hard surface, they might like that, but if you were giving that to me to sculpt, I would hate my life. I would much rather sculpt something like this than that, because at least I have a chance to sort of freeform sculpt into these forms and get into that organic stuff. It's just each sculpt is different, but yeah, I really thought these are a good addition to the game, and I like the fact that they sort of that they sort of bring the water with them, and everything kind of floats and flies, and the eels and the turtle. It's just hilarious to me. So I kind of like it, and the fact that they got the true elves here, the soulless ones. That's perfect. So I thought that'd be cool. I could just do an army of these, because they're aren't they the soulless tragic elves that were consumed by Slanesh or something. There's something to do with Slanesh here, right? I don't know the backstory for these, but I know that they don't have souls or something like that, or maybe they were saved, or I don't know. But anyway, the story for them is cool. So yeah. So I like it. It's good, and I think tons of Pokemon fans will be enjoying these this fish and this crab. I don't know what they're used for, but it's pretty cool, right? So yeah, all good. Now we come down, we've got, okay, so from Forge World, it looks like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I've never played this, but for those that love, your epic style games, this looks like this is all pretty good. So this is, I don't even know what this game is even called. But anyway, planes, mechs, all the stuff you want from that sort of scale game. Looks cool. Sorry if I butchered all that, because I don't really know what's going on there. But anyway, we'll move on. And then Black Library, yeah, all your books to support the new stuff. Oh, even some Blackstone Fortress. That's interesting, considering the game's sort of done already. But yeah, cool. Okay, and some Orc stuff, because obviously Orcs are coming. Awesome. Okay, let's move on. So now that leads well into the orc thing. So here we go, and it even says it there. All right, so this is pretty interesting. I'm not going to spend too long on this because obviously this is just more to show you. I'm not going to go into like, you know, I guess a hard breakdown on strategy and tactics here, because that's kind of like a different video. But we can see here everyone was thinking they were going to get 2 wounds, and interestingly they're not, but they are getting toughness 5. So I'm glad they don't have 2 wounds, to be honest, because that would push them into they wouldn't be able to be a horde army anymore. You'd have to up point them too much, and then you'd have to downsize their units, and they'd no longer be that mass horde that they normally are. So you have to figure out a different way of giving them bonuses that keeps them competitive without blowing them out of the water. And having 2 wound basic boys would just change the very nature of the way they play and make them too samey with everything else in the game. They'd just be the same as everything else, but with a worse save and a worse BS. You know what I mean? And that's just doesn't make them cool. Like you got to think of other ways to like give them durability and get them across the board without changing the structure of the overall army. That army has been that way since the beginning of 40k, when it was Rogue Trader. You know, these are sort of these rabble hordes. You know, these English hooligans. You know, soccer fans. You know, that's where their roots come from. That's the genesis of what orcs are. They're English soccer fans. You know, that here we go thing is like, have you ever seen a football match in England, and you see all the fans there and the way they chant and all their songs and all the different ways that they get into that sport? You know, it's everything orcs are. You know, that's where they get the inspiration for this. And so to change that mob idea by upping their stats too high makes it really, really difficult. Like, you know, another way you could do it is to give them the -1 damage thing, like what Death Guard have. You know, you could do that. That would also be a good way. But instead, they've gone for the toughness 5, which is a start. You know, who knows? Maybe another edition they get the -1 damage as well. But depending on how the meta goes. But you know, that's a good start to get these guys working, and we'll see their weapon as well. It's actually right back to the beginning. I don't know if they've in the previous editions, but back in the day, their Choppa used to do this anyway, this extra bit of thing that we're going to see in a second. But it's interesting. They're sort of taking old ideas and new and combining them. So I think that's good. I think the toughness 5 is fine as long as they don't up the points too much. This should make them, they should pretty much just stay the same and just make them toughness 5, to be honest. But, you know, I guess they'll have a little bit of a points change. And me playing Death Guard, I'm not too worried about this because they're only going to be toughness 4 when they're next to me, so it's fine. But, you know, it gives them at least some durability, which is nice. And it says even the Gretchen as well are going to get this. So across the board, they're going to get toughness 5, which I think is a really good thing, or at least +1 toughness. So maybe even some of the bosses are even like toughness 6 or 7. Who knows? We'll wait and see. And so now the interesting one is the Beast Snagger. So here we're seeing again not 2 wounds, it's only 1, but we're getting now strength 5 as well as toughness 5. So everyone thought that this was going to be the new Primaris, you know, orc, and it was going to replace it. That's obviously not true. They're going to because really this is like, maybe this particular anatomy is going to be the new orc, and maybe when they redo these at some stage, they'll use this kind of anatomy to create an orc like this, because there's something very different about this orc than this one. Not in terms of anatomy, but in terms of just their general idea of what they do. You know, this is a tribal kind of savage orc, and that's cool. But this one is more sort of industrial and techno focused, you know, with their weaponry and the armor and everything. And you don't want to lose that, because that really harkens back to, again, Rogue Trader, to the early days of orcs and the very aesthetic of what these things are. And to lose all this for this, I don't know. I think you would have lost the heart and soul of the army. Even though for those orc players that love the more savage side, it's only one aspect, you know, and they've got such a great number of aspects. And the tech side of orcs is great too, you know, all the wacky guns they make and all the vehicles and contraptions. If you had them all like this, they wouldn't make any of those things. They just wouldn't, you know. they'd have way less of that stuff, and and it'd be too samey then. You'd have everything all the same. So it's nice to keep that variety, and I can imagine them just changing the anatomy on those anyway. So that's just my little thoughts on that. So that's good. It's good to see that all the Ork players won't have to rebuy, hundreds and hundreds of models. I think there'd be a massive backlash if that was the case. So that's really nice. And we've got here the strength 5, toughness 5, so that's cool. And their stats don't really change apart from that. And I'm sure the bigger ones in the mob, change and so on. So that's all really cool. We've got a stratagem here. I won't go too much into this, but we will have a look at their base weapons. So the chopper, I'm assuming, is on the basic Ork, which they probably all have, and that's -1 here, -1 AP. And I'm pretty sure they didn't have that before. I'm almost positive. Each time the bearer fights, it makes 1 additional attack with this weapon. So that's great. So that means that they should have, so your basic boy then should have 3 attacks at -1 AP with strength 4, toughness 5. Pretty good. I think that's just gonna give them a bit more edge. Who knows how well it'll compete, but that's only just on the base boys. What are they going to do with all the rest of it? So there's obviously going to be a lot of ways to buff these guys, a lot of ways to get them in. They're going to give them a delivery system, right, to get them across the board. So there's not just in trucks, but just in terms of auras and buffs and ways to get them there. And I think that's coming. I think they're going to be a much more dynamic army than they were before, if you can get more dynamic for Orks. But I think you're going to have some interesting things coming for these. I think they're really thinking about them and giving them something cool. So I think that bodes well. I think there's nice rules here. You've got your big chopper, which is obviously like your double-hander one. +2 strength, -1 AP, yep, 2 damage. That seems all pretty standard. And then your Ooge chopper, which is obviously on, I guess, your maybe mega armor knobs can get it, or your just your big knobs, or the HQs, probably like that new mega armored one with the double-handed weapon. That's probably an Ooge chopper, which is +3 strength, -3 AP, 2 damage. So yeah. It's all looking pretty positive for Orks. I think overall, if you can see AOS 3, they're thinking about Orks. They've made a new faction. It's destruction. So all the sculptors and everyone, not right now, but when they were doing it, more than a year ago, they were all thinking about Orks and just designing everything. This was probably all done at once. The teams were probably just churning out Orks for both editions, I would imagine, or near enough to it, because you can see a lot of good cross-pollination there and a lot of good ideas. They're still wacky and fun, but there's a lot of seriousness in them, and the new Orks for AOS 3 are very serious, and these sort of faces, and you can see a little bit more seriousness than, this is still serious, but it's still a little bit funny, whereas here we're getting a little bit more of a serious look for the Ork, and I'm sure that's coming across in a lot of the new models. So it's still keeping the fun and humor, but with that little bit of extra interest and for the more serious Ork player. So we'll leave it on this guy here, but that's pretty much everything for this week. Obviously there is some more stuff there. Head over to the community channel and have a look at it if you want to see any other articles that are there, but these were the things that I thought were the most interesting to take a look at now. And so this Saturday we should see some good stuff on pre-order, and it's looking exciting. We've got AOS 3 coming, we've got new books for 40k dropping now. The future looks pretty good, although it's a very, very powerful game right now. There's a lot of, the power spiking is huge at the moment. So, for more competitive games, a bit tough. But for your casual games, it's not going to really affect much. But yeah, you're looking at some tough games if you want to play competitively right now. But otherwise, everything's good. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit that like button, subscribe button if you've liked it. It really helps me out. But otherwise, I guess I'll catch you on the next one.